Hello and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the movie As Above, So Below. This is a movie I've been wanting to talk about on the channel for a while now, and I rewatched it for the first time a couple of months back, and I finally have a chance to talk about it here. So I'm looking forward to it. Make sure you join me in the comments down below as we discuss the movie. I look forward to hearing from you. Welcome once again, my name is Austin, and this channel is all about helping you to dig deeper and go further to better understand faith and film and everything that's in between. If that sounds exciting to you, make sure you click the subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on any future content. In this video, we're jumping back into my Christian Perspective series, which is a series where I talk about a movie, specifically its themes, its messaging, and kind of how I relate it to my Christian faith. So there's some of my favorite videos to do, and like I said earlier, this is one that I've been wanting to do for a while, so I'm finally able to jump into it. So As Above, So Below, if you don't know, is a found footage horror movie that came out in 2014, and essentially the premise of this movie is when a team of explorers ventures into the catacombs that lie beneath the streets of Paris, they uncover the dark secret that lies within this city of the dead. So this is probably one of my favorite found footage style movies. I really like the way that they incorporate the style of the found footage filmmaking into the movie, where we're following the characters as they're kind of making a documentary as they're searching for Nicholas Flamel's philosopher's stone. No, not that philosopher's stone, but this is just a really cool, interesting story of something very straightforward and simple, but it is very effective, I think. We primarily follow main character Scarlett, who is kind of an archaeologist, and her father was also going on a similar search up until his passing and disappearance. So she wants to kind of continue on with what he started. And so she finds this clue, somewhat National Treasure style, that the catacombs might hold this philosopher's stone that her father and now she is searching for. So she gets together with an old boyfriend as well as her current cameraman for this documentary she's filming, and they hire some people to bring her down into the catacombs with her group, and they're searching for this philosopher's stone. Along the way, like I said, we kind of jump back and forth between them documenting what's happening as well as some interviews here and there as they're interviewing each other about their thoughts on what's going on, why it's important to them, that kind of thing. And it's really cool to kind of get in their head in this way as opposed to the traditional filmmaking style where it's just told through that traditional filmmaking. So I really appreciate it. I think it's pretty well done. So that's kind of my review of the movie, essentially. I think it's a pretty good one. I definitely recommend checking it out, and it's definitely a movie that legitimately kind of freaks me out at times, not necessarily for its horror elements, though it is pretty creepy at times, but I'm definitely someone who kind of has a fear of tight spaces, and this movie is very effective with kind of conveying the claustrophobia that these people are experiencing throughout their journey through and into the catacombs. So as this group ventures deeper and deeper and deeper into the catacombs, eventually beyond where kind of tourists are allowed to view the different areas and, the historical significance of it all, it gets to a certain point where they realize there's something else at work down here. And something that's really interesting about this movie that I didn't know is kind of elements of it are based off of I think, Divine Comedy, it's called, of Dante's Inferno and the Nine Circles of Hell. And so you kind of get this very spiritual kind of correlation between the events of the story and religion and spirituality. So it's a really interesting kind of mix, and definitely one that I think would spark really interesting conversations. So that's why I wanted to kind of talk about it here. And so like I said, I'm not very familiar with the whole Dante's Inferno, Nine Circles of Hell. I watched a couple of YouTube videos on it the first time I watched the movie because it was interesting to me. And there's definitely a lot there to kind of digest and dissect and dig into. So aside from that, I did get really intrigued by the spiritual aspect of this movie because, like I said, as we get deeper, it kind of seems like something else is at play down here. Something dark and very internal for each of these characters. And pretty soon we kind of get a, like I said, inside look at each of them, and kind of a specific sin that each of them has been struggling with for some time. So eventually they're trying to discern, are they having just this struggle with this internal sin that's kind of come to the surface here? Are they actually facing one of these circles of hell that they must face and is truly happening right there? So it gets to be some really interesting stuff. And the overall theme that I kind of pick up on as we kind of reach the final act of this movie, which I won't spoil really anything major that happens here. So if you haven't seen it, you don't have to worry too much. But the main theme that I picked up on throughout this movie is that once they get to a certain point here, they're kind of trapped. And so they're each looking, obviously, for a way out of here, because who wants to be trapped in the catacombs? So they're repeating where they've been, and it's just bringing them deeper and deeper into the catacombs. And so it's getting harder and harder for them to face these struggles and the guilt of these sins that they have committed. And unfortunately, some people do not make it out of this. But what's really interesting in the end is the people who do make it out are the ones who actually choose to face the sin that they're being confronted with and having these visions of, and actually forgiving themselves for committing those acts. And I think that is a extremely powerful theme, especially one that I really liked within the construct of a horror movie, because as you know from me, I think horror is a really interesting avenue when it comes to religion, Christianity, spirituality, that kind of thing. And I think there's a lot of opportunities that go missed by the general Christian community in avoiding this genre. So I think this movie does a good job of kind of conveying the internal struggles and sins and guilt that humans feel, and the need to face those acts that we've committed and be able to reach a place where we forgive ourselves for it. So there's so much to unpack with that. Like I said, whether it's the whole kind of metaphor of the 9 circles of hell that they're facing as they dig deeper and deeper into the catacombs in trying to escape, and then reaching that point where they're willing to accept the things that they've done and forgive themselves for those acts that they've committed. I think it's a fantastic kind of dissection of those elements and really interesting conversations. One verse that comes to mind with these themes on forgiveness and the need for each of them to forgive themselves for what they've committed is Ephesians 2:8. which says, "By grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God." The movie doesn't fully commit to, obviously, the kind of grace and forgiveness of God necessarily, but it does focus on those themes of forgiveness, especially within oneself for the things that we commit. And so I think it's a really interesting correlation between different scriptures when it comes to the forgiveness of God and the power that it has, that you will be trapped in your sin unless you are willing to accept the forgiveness of God, be able to forgive yourself, and move on from those things. And one final verse I want to leave you with is Mark 11:25, which says, "When you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive them, so that your Father in heaven may forgive your sins." So I just love the themes on forgiveness within this movie. I think it's really well done and orchestrated, as I said. I love to have a conversation further with anyone who's interested in the comments down below about some of the really interesting themes and metaphors, especially within how it relates to religion and Christianity. I think it's really interesting. So I have to go check on my baby because his nap time's just about up, but I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this one because it's one that I've been wanting to put out for a while now, and I'm glad I finally had the chance to. So thanks for sticking around to the end of this one. I'll see you in the next video.